I'm Todd Wetzel. I graduated from Virginia Tech in 1992 with my bachelor's in aerospace engineering. Followed that up with a master's in 93 and a PhD in 1996. And then even stayed for a year and did a postdoc. So you can tell I kind of like Virginia Tech. I kind of like the aerospace department. Um, after Virginia Tech, I went to work at GE's Global Research Center in upstate New York, spent almost 23 years there. It was just such a fantastic way to really start and build my career. Went up there and got to really learn a ton more about science and engineering beyond even what I learned in school. Got to work on a very wide range of products, especially jet engines and land-based gas turbines and all forms of electricity production. And I also got to learn up there, the business side of science and technology. You learn a ton of that from a place like GE. Then almost a year ago, I left GE to start the next adventure of my career, where I'm at now, which is at Blue Origin, where I'm a senior director for test operations. So I'm responsible for basically all of our test facilities in Washington, Texas, and Alabama, especially for testing rocket engines. And if you ask, what inspired me to get into this field, if you were to go all the way back to literally when I was 10 years old, I loved rockets, I loved race cars, and I already knew as a 10-year-old in fourth grade that I was going to get a PhD in aerospace engineering. And I even knew, by the way, that I wanted to do wind tunnel testing. And so part of what eventually got me to Virginia Tech was the stability wind tunnel. When I found that as a kid in high school, it quickly went to the top of my list of where I wanted to go to school. I think the way you have to think about it is the whole purpose of having public, government-funded projects is in areas where the barrier is really, really high for the private sector to kind of overcome. And so that's kind of defined the history of the whole space program up until really the last decade. You think about it, space was the purview of countries, and even at that, very few countries have been able to really do meaningful things in that area. But now, as you see, what we call space 2.0, the big companies like Blue Origin that are kind of coming in with some fresh ideas, it's kind of changing things. And you want that to happen because real markets eventually need to be ones that have vibrant private segments to them. That's what brings a lot of innovation. That's ultimately what brings scale. And so, as you go through this next period, you're going to see really great partnerships because there's going to be a lot of situations where the private sector can really go and do these things. But you're going to see others where you're going to need some of that partnership with the NASAs of the world and other public institutes to really do those audacious, big next kind of steps in this kind of overall journey of putting people out in space. Yeah, there's a couple ways. First, Blue Origin from its very beginnings was really focused on reusability. And of course, that's become really that next kind of threshold and is defining what the industry is today. You've got to be reusable if you're going to have the kind of economics that make frequent and affordable access to space a reality. The second thing I'd say is just flat out scale of what Blue Origin is attempting to build. The rocket that we're working on right now, the New Glenn rocket, is so big. It's just about as big as the Saturn V, and it's because central to the vision of Blue Origin is, not just making another launcher, but making it possible to really have literally 1 million people in space someday and trying to build the launch capacity it takes to make that kind of growth possible. And that's part of, by the way, what really attracted me to the company. When I really saw that rocket, it was like, oh my gosh, I could be part of the company in this part of history to make that thing fly. That was super amazing. And then just the other thing that's very near term right now is we're going to start flying tourists into space. We're already advertising July 20th will be the first launch of a suborbital, group of 6 people on our New Shepard rocket. You can go in right now. You can go and bid for seats on that flight, and we're super excited because you think about the years of work that it goes into making a rocket, not only work, but something that's absolutely safe to put, normal people on is just a huge amount of work. And we're there and just super excited to be really making that space tourism thing like a very real and repeatable activity. If you look at where we're going now with certainly with Blue Origin and some other companies that are really making access to space orders of magnitude more affordable, like those previous space tourists, I think you're looking at north of $100 million if you're going to get on anything that's available today. This next generation, including our New Shepard rocket and other vehicles out there, are going to be a lot cheaper than that. So you won't see 10 people the next decade. I mean, we'll put 6 people up on the first flight on July 20th, right? And so we're going to be putting 6 tourists up at a time, and we'll fly that thing easily a dozen times a year. So the point being is, I think as you play out over the next decade, it'll be now hundreds, maybe even over 1,000 people will have flown to space by the year 2030. And the way I like to think of it is, there's a pretty decent chance that my kids or their friends, like my kids will know somebody that will have flown on these things, but certainly my grandkids, it'll be as common. I don't know, what do you say? Maybe as common as hang gliding and mountain climbing, some of the other things where, are reasonably accessible. Does 50% of the population go hang gliding? No. But it's not the kind of thing where you look at and say, man, it's an impossibility. So I think we're going to get to thousands. Beyond that, the tens and hundreds of thousands are quite realistic in my lifetime. First of all, what I really believe we'll see in my lifetime is we're going to be back on the moon. We're not going to be back on the moon with just a few people for a few days. I mean, it's going to, I think, mimic more what we've become accustomed to with the International Space Station, a continual presence, a crew of some number of people there at all times, continual, frequent flights back and forth between Earth and the moon. You're going to see that. But what's exciting about that is what that leads to, right? Is what that leads to in terms of learning more about the moon, more discoveries that come, and about providing the foothold that it takes to then travel much farther. When you study space flight and whatnot, getting off the Earth is really hard. But if you never had to get off the Earth, then going to farther destinations is quite a bit more economical. So when you get to the point where you've got a permanent presence on the moon, you learn how to live and thrive there. And now you can start doing things like making propellant, making things, making metals on the moon and making structures and whatnot. It just dramatically opens the aperture for the kind of missions that humans can do. So I'm excited to see how far we get on that journey in my lifetime. I think the way I think of it is I voted with my feet how I felt about the school, right? Because by the way, it's more common than not to go to different schools for your different degrees, but I just really loved Virginia Tech. It was really great for me. And I always measured when I'm, whether it was at school or in my jobs or whatnot, am I in a place where I'm learning and growing and able to do that sort of thing? And Virginia Tech just meant a lot to me because it gave me so many opportunities to learn and grow. And I don't know what else to say except that I voted with my feet, so I clearly like the place. For students, all your classes are important, but it's a really great opportunity to get on one of the design build kind of teams. Any of those teams, I believe engineers build things. Engineers don't do math and science alone. They go and they build things. And it's only really typically on those teams that you really get that great experience. And there's so many of them that I think if you're a student right now, get on one of those teams because it'll teach you so much and it'll prepare you well for industry. And then just beyond that, you get to choose whether you have a job or a career. You get to choose whether you have a job or a mission. And I can just tell you, it's so much more fun when you have a mission. So my encouragement is when you're getting to that point where you're starting to figure out what you're going to do after Virginia Tech, go find amazing companies and go find amazing jobs and do amazing things. And you'll just be extremely happy.